No.
Well, listen.
What?
Oh, Yochanan, you with us?
Yeah, with
We can call also. Sounds good. Listen.
Okay, good.
No, when it comes to share, I'll even free this to love. Free what? You know what I'm talking about. Oh, free riding home. No. Yes. What?
Special things that can fast past.
Oh,
Parrots.
what's the occasion tonight?
Huh?
What's the occasion tonight?
The occasion is Anand is having your site. Anand's going to make a siyum. And through 9 days, good to make a siyum. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol b'dvori.
Okay.
A little bit of a geschmack view on a question that developed direct on an Rambam. I'm just going to read the Rambam quickly. I know you're learning it the Monday. The other shurim, you went through this Rambam. Just that I doubt that this biur is a unique biur. So we'll do it tonight. Mizbeach mekayim mechuvim b'yoytze. They mishana esim mekayim alaylam shenam azam mizbeach loyal Yisrael. That Mizbeach is the mechuvim b'yoytze. The Rambam says later that there was a Navi special that came up Midbavel to show them exactly the mokim of the Mizbeach. V'mikdash neked Yitzchak Avinu shenamar v'lech l'chol aretz Maria. V'nem v'dibrayam v'yachar shlam alivin es beis Hashem v'shlam hara Maria. Asher nira lo David Aviyu. Asher heichem b'mokim David begarnan arnan yevusim. U'meseres b'yad HaKoyel shemokim shabonam by David Shlam Mizbeach begarnan Arvana u'mokim shabonam by Avram Mizbeach v'akad of Yitzchak. U'mokim she Bona boy Noach kishiyotza min hateva v'hu hamizbeach shehikriv alav kain v'herel u'boy hikriv odem arishin carving shenivra misham nivra amachom em odem emak kaparosei nivra. Seemingly the Rambam brings a very interesting medrash that the place of the mizbeach is the place where the world was created from that place, and that was the place where was the Mizbeach that Cain veHevel. Earlier, Adam and Isha made a carbon there, Cain veHevel made a carbon there, Noach made a carbon there, and that was where Akedas Yitzchak took place. Why is it relevant and halacha to know this? Also, there were others that Yaakov Avinu came. We know in the Chumash Yaakov Avinu made his carbon here. So why were we not mentioned by Yaakov Avinu? There was a Yehoshua Rov in Hungary who passed away in not Chust, I forget, Weitznerov, the Weitznerov, who passed away in 1910, and he wrote two Sfarim on the Rambam, one on Hilchos Beis HaBechira. And every halacha, it's like the Sefer is like 200 pages on 8 chapters of Hilchos Beis HaBechira, and every halacha he goes through very, very thoroughly. So he brings a question that all the Meforshim ask. All the Meforshim. Many of the Meforshim ask. The Yerushalmi says that Chizkiyo, it says, Loi nasa kapesach hazeh, he cleaned up the place, it was never like such a Pesach. The Gemara Yerushalmi says, why was it never such a Pesach? Because he found the skull of Arvana Hayebusi. Arvana was the owner of that land, and he sold the land to David the Melech. And apparently, it turned out that on that mountain there was a family burial plot. All the Meforshim say, "This, come on, this is crazy. You're telling me David the Melech built and prepared, Shlomo Melech built the Beis Mikdash, And for hundreds of years they broke up on us. And whoops, they all of a sudden discovered a skull from this guy, Arvana Yabusi.
How would they know? Skull.
That's what exactly. It's one of the questions that asked. How, but they did DNA at the skull? What? It was carved in the skull? It said Arnon on the skull? How did they know? They had carbon testing. How did they know it was a skull from Arnon Yabusi?
Dental implants.
From the dental.
X-ray extractions. MRIs.
He was known that he had a lot of gold in his teeth. They counted. They knew he had 13 pieces of gold in the teeth. And they were matched up.
Maybe they thought it was a burial place.
So
Why?
so how did it end up that that's what the Mephoshim ask?
The Arabs built the whole
Right.
to the house.
Another, the Tosfos asks a shaila. The Tosfos asks a shaila. Before we get Tosfos shaila, let's read this shaila. Let's read the Lach and the Ram. Mizbeach, and the truth is that David the Melech really conquered the city, but he didn't want ever that Goyim should say that the Jews are worshiping on a mountain that they conquered, even though Eretz Yisrael belonged to Yisrael and they conquered it. So he bought that mountain dafke because of Molly from Arvana Hayabus. Amizbechen ein oise elaboinin avonim. Gozis shenemar batoira mizbeach adoma tasali sheyiyah mechuber badoma has to be connected to the earth. Shloim and loyal al gabi kipim v'lo gabi mechilus. The mizbeach cannot be built on top of tunnels, soil to soil. Zeh shenemar im mizbeach avonim. V'yashu alam d'shen nishus alachoy. So let's look on the left side. Lo yivnu al gabi kipin, lo al gabi mechilos.
Rabbi, do you have a copy of that? What's the other side? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Look on the left side, 3 lines from the top. Lo yivnu al gabi kipin, lo al gabi mechilos. You're not allowed to build it on bridges. He asked the question. I'll call out about it. Say, "Bon al gabi kipin, meshkosorim peribeis miporo." The Rambam writes the whole Harabayis was built, keeping Agabi keeping. They built, the Rambam says, because they were scared that there's a Tumah. So what did they do? They built, under the Harabayis, they built a contraption of like this, cement bubbles. All under, keeping al-gabi keeping, cement bubbles, to lock in the tumah. So here there was a Pesach Tefach to say the tumah is going to travel here and here, and then it stops. They made sure to build bubbles and bubbles and bubbles, all underneath. One of the issues, I didn't give a share this year to the men about this. See, do I have? No, I took it home. About the place of the Beis Hamikdash, which is a big, I gave a share about it 2-3 years ago, maybe last year. The big issue about where is the place of the Beis Hamikdash? We know where the Temple Mount is, but where's the place of the Beis Hamikdash? Where? If you go today in the coastal tour, they show you a certain place that this is okay. That's what they hold. They hold that way, but many scholars disagree. So those that disagree say that the Dome of the Rock is way off. They said they did infrared testing, and that you see that in a different spot, way off, is where there's a lot of, you can see from over the ground that under the Dome of the Rock there is just sand. But in another space between Solomon's Stable and the Dome of the Rock, that there is a lot of cavities in the ground. That there's a ton of cavities under the ground. I mean, it's supporting evidence. It's not a slam dunk. Things could shift over 2,000 years, but there's many other discussions, and maybe we'll talk about it next week. But so how can you tell me here that Amam says not allowed to build it? Has to be that it's sand, that sounds like 100 feet under the Mizbeach has to be sand. Until the bedrock, it has to be sand. But the whole Harabayis, you're telling me, was built keeping Agabe keeping. So which one is true? It's just a contradiction. It's either Zikr, actually, yeah, Mechuber Badama. The keeping Ink Peda. Achik shall zem is wachen daf Moses the Baruch Gemara. Die Ev shall lishche tachets Mizbeach. The ein boine Mechilas tachets Mizbeach. Mocher Rafilo the Betoich Adama. Yesh Peda shall Mechilas. The Gemara says, it has an argument, whatever, back and forth. The Gemara says, you can never go under the Mizbeach. The Gemara says, no, maybe there is a tunnel under the Mizbeach. No, you can't have any tunnel. It has to be sand under the Mizbeach down to the bedrock of the world. So we see that you cannot have tunnels under the Mizbeach. The Mokim of Mizbeach, loyo you keep it. Mixed Sakos. Has to be there was no tunnels under the Mizbeach.
They could dig 30 feet and once the nobody's buried below 30 feet.
Exactly. It's like a funny question. Just dig and you find out. Tzarech loimer, kim the hakel b'ksav, Hashem elai hiskil, u'mokim Mizbeach yud, meisa kedis Yitzchak, Mishkoseh Rabbeinu Perik Beis in Cain. Bavada b'oisem mokum like a tumas atahim. Main tzarech lasa is keeping, because the Eibishter definitely wouldn't lead them in the wrong way. Chikshad mavur b'Yerushalmi the nimtza golgoltoi shal Arnon haYevusi tachas Mizbeach. It's a beferish Yerushalmi that Arnon haYevusi. Now, I read a lot about this before the shir, just prepare for the shir. Some say not necessarily was the man that sold the you say that was could be he had a grandfather that had the same name. Be it as it may, they found a skull of a person under the Mizbeach. By the way, people ask, how did they know whose skull? The truth is not relevant whose skull it is. And they knew that this was sold by Arvana Yebusi, and they knew he had a psazeda, steichel case, Arvana Yebusi, and they found the skull. So they got whatever. So Arnon 1, Arnon 2, or was Arnon 3, or was Arnon's second cousin, say 2 times removed? What's the difference? They found a Gulgurlis from the family of Arnon Yebusi. Mizbeach nigla l'dav weil ancient kevet time. It's more and can echef shalom and makom hu dak in nitz kevet time. The makom Hashem nigla l'dav meis Hashem Yisborach. Shezo makom hakosher b'rol Mizbeach. How could it be takazik? How could it be that the Eibush to show Davar Melech? This should be the exact. Rambam says Mizbeach makom mechuvim b'yoyse. The Eibush told Davar Melech, this is exactly the perimeters of the Mizbeach. And then it turns out that there was a skull there. How could it be? The Eibush showed David the Melech the precise place of the Mizbeach, and it turns out that 200 years later, Chizkiyahu Melech Yehuda, 300 years later, Chizkiyahu Melech, whoops, there's a skull there. The Mashal Oibanu keep him a Makam Mizbeach Mashum, the Somchut Kimashin is Galal David, is a Makam Mizbeach. Can you do them Shain Shum Kevet Ohaim? Eich Efshed, the Makam Hu Yeh Nimtza Kevet Ohaim. How could it be? Ubechazvat tfilosa mashabotchu beDavid l'maniglahem l'David sheyesh sham kebezdin whatever niglahem l'David sheyesh. How could it be? It's just weird. Kein halach sam sofer the hoyeshem samach lamakim kavuris mishpachas Arvana. Tchilas sam tamu hatev mechitzas eitz la mechilas. Akach nifritz am achitzes, v'nos galgal el am achilas, misham bo al ashitin, v'tum aplikaz derech nikve ashitin el habois. He said, yeah, he says that, say the Mizbeach, say the Mizbeach was here, and the Mizbeach had shitin, had two holes going down all the way down to the liquids would go all the way down. He says maybe there was some point there was over here they built a retaining wall for all the bones and that were buried for a few hundreds of years from the Jebusite, from the Yevusim that were here. And many years later, someone was not be careful in the maintenance. They needed to have underground maintenance. This is overground. This is all underground. So people got to crawl there. There was crawl space to make sure that everything. Someone was negligent, and there was an erosion over here, and then a one skull ended up traveling, from here to here, and it ended up somewhere under the Mizbeach where the shitin is. The problem is, had the skull, say the skull stayed here, the tumor would be contained. But since the skull ended up over here, and here there's a hole going from the Mizbeach all the way down, so the tumor was able to travel up the shaft. The tumor was able to go all the way up through the holes onto the Mizbeach. Yeah, they did. But they built a system that the blood could go out to Nachal Kidron. It wasn't just a pool that they built underneath. They built a system that the excess blood will drain out from here to Nachal Kidron, and it was sold later to farmers. So there was a system that otherwise it would be maybe an overload that would go, but that's a separate issue. There were fertilizer, yeah.
Was they could sell it? It wasn't like
There was hektish. They could sell it, yes, because the mitzvah was done with it. So, but still, the benefit belongs to the Beis Hamikdash. But there was holes that went straight down to the ground.
Why did it have to destroy Caleb?
Who were they destroying? What Caleb are they destroying?
Shiloi.
Oh, that's a separate thing. They destroyed the klicheres that the Torah says that they cooked in the klicheres after destroy it. Because you can't cash it. You went to Shiloi?
Still sat down. Scrambling.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You went to the shul. Like it looks like the Mishkan. You bought some wine, some Shiloi wine? No, they didn't get you. You're not a good customer.
No, but so what else? If somebody was able to take that pot,
No, because those pots belong to privately. Those pots they're not Mila Hektish. They didn't belong to the Beis Hamikdash. They belong to private people that cooked the kotchim in it, then broke it. That's fine. If it belonged to the Beis Hamikdash, you wouldn't be allowed to touch it now and have enough of it now. Well, anyway, back to our story with the Mizbeach. That's the staff. It's a little bit of a far-fetched answer, but some Sefer is saying, that they didn't want to take all the bones and throw it in the garbage. It's like, for many years they were taking garbage in work around the world, and they were putting it in pits, and they were putting plastic around it. But they didn't know that the plastic, and now years later, in different places in the world, there's erosion, and sand is shifting, and the ocean shifts, and things are shifting. All of a sudden, you have these huge fields of garbage, and the plastic. It's not like now. Like, for example, next to JFK, where they closed up they did a whole system where they closed the piping that the gas could come out, and that basically it's really secure, that the garbage is secure and they keep an eye on it. But not in New York, but there are different places in the world where, especially third world countries, where they have been putting 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they've been putting this, and they put plastic, plastic. And now, if it stayed under the ground for 100 years, 200 years, it'll be fine. But because the ground is shifting or water in this, and all of a sudden the plastic bags are plotzing, and there's garbage all over the place. So that's basically what happened here. That they put a retaining wall for the bones, and someone was sleeping at the controls, and there was an erosion, and it ended up that a skull was there under, but not the Chas v'Sholom and David HaMelech or Shlomo. All the hundreds of years there was no problem. That's what answers some survey.
The basic times, they sometimes have bones come to the top because the water pushes it up.
True.
Skulls and
Right. Also in New York, some places in New Jersey, that they have a requirement by the law, because what's called, that after they bury, they have to put a cement sealer. They have to bring a huge cement thing, which has many walls. It's just not in the bottom. It has walls from the top and all sides. A crane comes and puts it down, and then you could put the sand, in order not to have the bones go bubble up.
Sorry, story about Anderson Shirley Chisholm.
Right.
The WIC program never gave an idea. But she said that they always put her down. They didn't know what to do with her, right? So what did they go in? They made this park. And on the Belt Parkway, it's called the Shirley Chisholm Park. It's on a garbage dump.
yeah.
They might think they blush, but still.
I think today it's considered cool.
Democrat,
So that's the story. That's the answer on some sofer. Okay, let's leave it at this. Once we finish at least that piece. Yeah, v'shaper also tuma derech. It says the other places where, okay, that's it. So at least one answer. So now let's go back to the Rebbe Sikha. The Rebbe liked to say for Ma'aseh L'Melech. It's like because the Rebbe enjoyed very much his Beis HaBechira. And here is a Yid that did extensive research and wrote a sefer like this, and the whole Beis HaBechira. The Rebbe quotes him a lot. So the Rebbe says like this. Could be, you could say such a pshat. A person is going to say, and behek them another shaila. Tosfos asks, the Gemara says in Daf Mem Hey in Avodah Zarah that every place where you find in Eretz Yisrael a mount, and you find a Eitzer Anon, you know for sure that Eretz Yisrael was so infested with Avodah Zarah that place was Avodah Zarah. The Mishnah says, "Kol makom shatamoitza har gavoya begiven nisa ve'Eitzer Anon dash yesham avodas kechaver." And so Tosfos asks, how were they able to build the Beis HaMikdash? It was a city of Yevusi. It wasn't Stam, the middle of the desert. It was a city of the Yevusi. And if you go now, they show you hundreds of years of the Yevusi history. It wasn't Stam, fly-by-night city. It was an important city to the Yevusi. It was a very important city. So why wouldn't you think that they had an Avodah Zarah there? So Tosfos says there must have been a nevuah from that the Eibusha told them that there was no Avodah Zarah there. So the Rebbe says that maybe this is what the Rambam is trying to say. That the Rambam is trying to say that this place was holy to all humanity, and it was a makom yodua to everyone. So this place where the Mizbeach, not the whole Arba'is is a big place. But the Makam HaMizbeach was known to all people that live in the region as a very holy place. They wouldn't dare to put an Avodah Zarah there, number one. Number two, they wouldn't dare to make it as a Beis HaKvoros. If you know that this place was sanctified by Odom Arish and by Cain and Heva, and then furthermore by Noach, and then further by Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak, these personalities were important to the Goyim. Yitzchak was the father of Esav, and Avram was the father of Ishmael. So all the Goyim, it's important to place to them. So it doesn't make sense that if it's Masoidas b'yad HaKoil doesn't mean it's at the Yid. B'yad HaKoil b'chol boy olam. That the Goyim knew a Masoida. There was a Masoida by the Goyim. The Goyim knew tradition, that this is the exact spot where Adam and Ishim brought his carbon, and Cain Hevel brought the carbon, and Noach brought his carbon, and Avram Avinu brought his carbon. Why would they go make it a cemetery? And then why would they go put up a Zarah there? So therefore it's important. A person might say, maybe there is a cemetery down there. Maybe it's a place of Avodah Zarah. So therefore the Rambam says, no, it was a Masodas B'yad HaKol. That's why it doesn't mention Yaakov, because Yaakov is not such a yichus to the Goyim. Avram was a grandfather and grandfather of Ishmael and Esav. Yitzchak was and Edom and Shmuelim lived here or whatever. But Yaakov in a Mitosa Shlema, it's not so important to the Goyim. And you want to say Masodas B'yad HaKol, that the Goyim had respect for the place. So you want to go back, Adam, Arisha, Cain Hevel, Noah, Avram, right, exactly. So just like the Maris Machpelah, that you see, the who preserved the Maris Machpelah? The Arabs preserved it. Who built that building? The Arabs built that building. It's a choshev to them. So therefore, the Rebbe says a svara. And then Takazoi, like the Chassam Sofer says, or many other tirutzim that you can give, that later someone just like in the third world countries where they're not careful about about the garbages that they put away in the 50s and the 60s, the bags are plotzing. So someone was not taking care of the subterranean of the Harabayas, and there was a place where there was a lot of bones from the Yevusim, and some Gulgurlis rolled out. And as we know, there's a lot of mechilos, there's a lot of tunnels and a lot of passageways, so things can go flying from here to there. And there was no protection here. You could hear there's a like that. Okay, but the Rama wants to say that originally don't tell me maybe this was Avodah Zarah. Don't tell me maybe this was a cemetery, because there was Masodas B'yad HaKol. Even the Gentiles, the Goyim, knew that this is a holy place. They wouldn't make it a cemetery, and they wouldn't make it a place of Avodah Zarah. So the Rebbe says that from here we have an unbelievable lesson. We know from the Haftorah and Sukkos. In Sukkos, when we bring the 70 bulls for the safety of the 70 nations, so we read them from Zechariah that says when Mashiach will come, that the Kol HaNoisem and Kol HaGoyim, whatever it's going to be left from the Goyim, that they're going to come to be mishtachim, they're going to come bow to Hashem when it comes Chag HaSukkos. Why Chag HaSukkos? Because Sukkos is a holiday that's open for the Goyim to come to bow to the Eibishter. And if they don't come, they'll punish. It's a whole beautiful long haftarah about this. So we see that the Taka, even going back to the beginning of history, that there was unbelievable respect that the Goyim had for the place of the Mizbeach. Special respect that the Goyim had for the place of the Mizbeach. So when the Yid stands strong, and proclaims to the world that this is the place of the Kedusha of the Mizbeach, and therefore this is not to be desecrated, then the Goyim will learn to respect it. And ultimately, the Goyim are going to come and bow to the Eibishter in the Beis HaMikdash. Okay. It's and it definitely lends itself to thought about, what is the idea of a skull. We know in Chassidus, a skull protects the brain. So there is logic, and then there is a skull. The skull is just like, in a way higher than the brain. It can protect the brain. There is sometimes when you understand something, you do it because it makes sense, and sometimes there's akshonus. A person is stubborn. And the Alter Rebbe brings that there is akshonus that negative. A person is stubborn in a bad way. A person shouldn't be stubborn. A person sometimes their stubbornness is very good. Alter Rebbe says that when the Eibishter, when he forgives the Jews, Moshe Rabbeinu says, "Ki am kshe'oidefu," because they're the nation of the stiff neck. Therefore, b'salach v'lavanenu chatzenu chatonu. How is that a reason to forgive them? Because they have a stiff neck? Yeah, there's a positive thing about the stiff neck, that the Yetzer Hara comes, tries to tell them to do this and that, and they have a stiff neck, and their action, the Kedusha, they're stubborn, and they say, no, I'm a Jew, and I'm proud, and this is what I'll do, and I'm devoted to Hashem, and I'm devout Jew, and that's it. And they tell the Yetzer Hara where to go. So a Jew has akshonus. So that's a Gulgoylus, Kedusha. But sometimes it rolls into our Beis HaMikdash, rolls in, when a person is already in action, so you already roll from one type of akshonis to the other akshonis. So definitely in the days of David and Shlomo, there was no Shiloh. The Mefarshim say the skull of Klippa was never there on the Mizbeach. There, Chizkiyo, his father was a big Rosham. By the way, one of the Mefarshim says conspiracy theory, different subsections. One of the articles I read about this, it says Achaz, or he was an authority of the Mefarshim, someone else said that Achaz was the father of Chizkiyo. So Achaz, the father of Chizkiyo, was a big Rasha. So he probably went and he took the skull and he put it there. So that answers all the kashas. Definitely the place was pristine. But Chizkiyo was suspected that a father was a troublemaker. So he found that his father went and stuck it in for the Jews and put a skull, and that's not a skull, the skull of Arvana Yevusi under the Mizbeach. But be it as it may, the lesson maybe that we can learn is that we have to be careful that the akshonos of kedusha is very, very important, very, very important. That's the Alter Rebbe says that Moshe Rabbeinu was jealous of when he looked of all generations, and he saw one generation before Mashiach, and he saw that they're not going to be such a big Talmidei Chachamim or big, but they're going to have a lot of akshonos. They're going to be very stubborn. To stay Jewish, they're going to be stubborn. So that stubbornness is beautiful. That's the biggest milah. But sometimes could roll in a little bit of the stubbornness of klippa. So we have to clean it out. We have to make sure to get rid of the stubbornness of klippa and to keep to the stubbornness of kedusha. Okay, l'chaim. The first law l'chaim, because it's a Rosh Chodesh, and it's a Rosh Chodesh Menachemov, which Klal Yisrael has the minhag to call it Menachemov, that we have to be Menachem. Yidden are Menachem, the Eibishter, that the Eibishter should know that we didn't forget, and we want the Beis HaMikdash to be rebuilt. The Rebbe wanted very much that meat, no meat, that we should increase in Simcha through making siyumim. And tonight, Mitzvah Shem, we're going to have a siyum. Arnon Levi is making a siyum on Mishnais from the whole Shas.
Wow.
And it's going to be L'zeich Nishmas, his mother. What's mother's name? Oh, it's look, L'zeich Nishmas, your father. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's his mother's yahrzeit. He's doing it for L'zeich Nishmas' father. So l'chaim. Shamas Aliyah. What was it?
Gersh ben Raful Avraham Halevi.
Gersh
Ben Raful Avraham.
and Rafal Avraham.
Halevi.
L'chaim.
You have to go about 19 months because I started early.
It's very special. Really, it took you a long time, and it's very special. You should know it's a super duper special thing, and it's a schus for your father, and it's this one's lovely. Yeah, it's schus for you. Yes, it's unbelievable schus.
So
Really, for such a simon, we should have here. We should have pastrami, and we should have. Okay, but the simcha is just as big.
So it's the last Seder, the Horus elaborates in 3 chapters, and it talks about purity and impurity. So there's purity and impurity. And last concept also talks about foods. Foods and what comes from this, sex talks. And in fact, it's not easy Seder, not easy Masechta, to the point that Gemara tells that Rav Meir and Rav Natan, they wanted to vex Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, and they wanted him to teach them this all the laws of the Uksim. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was not very conversant in this topic, so it wasn't that easy. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda came to teach Uksim, and he found that it was difficult to understand all the reasons and why it's pura, why it's not pura. And he said that the queries between Rav and Shmuel, and who were masters of Yehuda, it was like many others were throughout the Talmud, they shared the same difficulty. It was very difficult. But last Mishnah of the Uksim comes to help us, because it doesn't talk about, it gives us mostly like a chizuk. A chizuk from the Jewish standpoint of view, how to approach learning and how to approach observance of the mitzvahs. It doesn't talk about what is pure and impure. It gives us a view how to live, basically. So Amar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, Atik HaKodesh Baruch Hu, וחנכו לכל צדיק וצדיק, 310 עולמות שנאמר, וחנכו אוהבי יש וששם עמלה. אמר רבי שמעון בן אלפתא, לא מצא הקדוש ברוך הוא כלי מחזיק ברכה לישראל, אלא השלום שנאמר, השם עוד עמו ייתן, ונרצה בשלום. So Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said that Kodesh Baruch Hu will in future cause every tzaddik, every righteous one, to inherit 310 words, because it's written that I may cause those who love me to inherit yet existence, and I will fill their treasures. Rabbi Shimon ben Halacha said the Kodesh Baruch Hu, Holy One, blessed he found no vessel that would hold Israel's blessings and peace. As it's written, the Lord will give the strength to his people, the Lord will bless his people with peace. So there are different commentaries on this, and some of them basically have for us meaning that number one is that Yesh is existence, and Yesh, Gematria of Yesh is 310. It's Yud Shin 310. And it shows that this reward for the righteous will be much more than the reward in this word. It's not like text, it's 310. And there are different approaches how this 310, 300, number 10 was derived. One of the approaches is that we have 613 mitzvahs, plus 7 Arvana, so it's 620. And it says that Hashem comes to help of even the tzaddik to this mitzvah. So it would be fair for us to share only half of the reward. 620 would be too much, but 310 it's just enough, even for the tzaddik. And also, why is Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said that tzaddik with tzaddik, why is tzaddik and tzaddik? Because basically we see that throughout all Mishnah, Gemara says argument in each other, what is pure, what is not pure, or what is right, what is not. Those are arguments. But the idea is that they argue for the shmos, they argue for the sake of the Torah. And at the end, it's the same as the parents. They argue about how to educate better children, or you can argue how to do this, but it's not because they're enemies. It's only for the sake how to do better. And that's why the Bishop said that both who are lenient and not lenient, who is the most strict, they will all get a reward. This is one of the, and this reward will definitely outweigh even 310 of the words. And so when it comes to Rabbi Shimon ben Halafta, so Tosfos Yom Tov says that Hashem wanted to give us a word, right? And people can have a lot of money, a lot of things, but nothing is really makes sense if you don't have peace, if you don't have shalom. It doesn't make sense. So that's why Hashem wanted to give it this kli, this vessel, that you have peace. The peace. And it comes, and the strength comes from where? From Torah, because the strength comes when Hashem gave even Torah is the strength to have peace. And that's why we say that our Shmonesa also finishes with peace, and if the Mishnah starts with man and ends with man, it's like also considering many ideas. Why? But to sum up, Tiferes Israel says that It's an opposite. Basically, that even an imperfect tzaddik, that is not completely righteous person, right? Who can we can study Torah, study everything, or maybe don't have time to study everything. Who can fulfill all mitzvahs and maybe somewhere err about them for that time. Or maybe he's careless about some certain things, especially if it's pure impure. But in this case, he will fail to fulfill all the commandments, maybe even commit some minor transgressions. But nevertheless, he will be accorded yesh. It will be accorded this reward of 310 course, and this comes from basically just to make sure that all the rewards what you do is will outweigh any transgressions and anything else. So, and it says that in God's word, it says that if only there will be peace in his home and between him and his fellow beings, the Lord will give the strength to his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. It's the reason why Mishnah ends specifically with those words. But we know that Rabbi Shua is the opposite. Basically, Rabbi Shimon Metalafta was older than him, so probably his Mishnah should go before, right? But for some reason, Mishnah puts Rabbi Shimon Levi, who was Amora, before him. Only notice that Mishnah from wording from Rabbi Shimon Kalafta will come at the end. So Mishnah will end with the word peace. So it should be very good to have peace.
Amen.
Yes, right.
Wow, beautiful theme.
Yeah. Should say Hebron or
Yes, say that. Huh?
Hebron, Alan, Shados, Mishnah, Chadra, Chalon, Betonova, Shuto, Sebe, Mishnah, Datsalan, Rod, Nisnashei, Enough, Shuto, Sebe, Mishnah, the Lord, Sisnashei, Tenon, Lo, Rolomo, Kadem, the Lo, Shahode,
Okay, let's wait another minute or two. Delilah will make l'chaim.
This guy started this the word.
Oh yeah, you did?
Because it was like a year and a half, more than a year and a half ago. This kissed.
Oh, and you took.
So I took it, but I finished it much earlier. So I had to do. And I wanted what that just happened with the father. So I started selling. Anyway, I couldn't do it.
Very
I was
special.
working, so I
Did
I'm
nice.
nice.
Very special. Very.
Double. Yeah.
You couldn't do a better thing.
Yeah, Yasher Koach.
Chala, you should know that when I learned Mishnayos, Friedrich Rebbe was a big deal. The Mishnayos, when he came to America, he said that the atmosphere, the air in America is not clean. You have to clean it through learning Mishnayos.
Wow.
Can I give you a little bit l'chaim?
Now he's food. Now he's food from
L'chaim.
I'm tired driving.
Okay, no, Mashikal Mazonis.
Sure. I actually had the opportunity to meet your father at Kovik's wedding. Even I couldn't understand it because he spoke Russian or Ukrainian. He had a very warm demeanor. But I think he was very
It was
friendly.
a beautiful wedding.
Yeah. And I remember he actually danced a little bit with Ovid at the wedding. They came in to see what's going on. It was very special.
Yeah, people were not that busy those days. It was the height of COVID.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Oh, very good. So we're almost there with the minute. We're having a see him now. Oh, well, we got to see him. Oh,
You came around.
Shumi came just in time for the see him.
Yeah.
I've been watching.
Oh, beautiful.
We just had this.
Shumi, can I give you a hand?